Does your significant other or coworkers hate your mechanical keyboard? I know mine does. If that's the case, this video is for you. Today we're going to look at some of Durock's silent switches, both linear and tactile. But before that, please do like and subscribe our video. It really helps us out a lot. And let us know in the comments section as well if this is what you want to see, or if you want to see us change our methodology, please let us know. We love your comments. We love to hear from you. So what we have here is we have the Dolphin, Daybreak, and Shrimp. Some very fancy names for these switches, but essentially the Dolphin and the Daybreak are very similar, just a different spring weight, whereas the Shrimp is actually a tactile switch. So we're going to take a look at these today. Now we're going to explore why they are silent, how the silent switches are designed from Durock, and then we're going to do a sound test to see how silent they really are. Alright, so we've got these three switches here today, and I'm going to show you real quick how exactly Durock achieves the silent switches, because I think it's quite a clever design actually. We've got one of the switches open right here. This is the Daybreak, and so if you've seen other switches before, you'd see that this is a pretty standard design, right? Nothing out of the ordinary until you look closer. The bottom housing is pretty much standard, so is the leaf, and same for the top housing, but the major difference lies right here on the stem. If you look at the stem, on the sides of the rails, you see that there's a little piece of black silicone right here, and a silicone ring that really kind of loops around the rails of the stem on both sides, and you can see on the bottom it kind of forms a cushioning layer right here, and so when you bottom out the switch, you are going to touch the silicone against the bottom of the housing. Similarly, on the top side right here, you can see that there's a little bit of the silicone sticking out on top as well, which is what's going to silence the upstroke of the switch. It's quite a clever design really, and quite elegant, if I must say so myself. And the silicone is a very soft material, and it really does a pretty good job at silencing it. And so really that's the major difference that I can see with this silent switch. And if you pull it out, which does take quite a bit of effort. So this is a Dolphin, and it's got a silicone damper, which is what makes it silent, that little black ring that we see over here. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to remove it so that we can compare a silenced version versus an unsilenced one. But because it's so small, it's actually quite difficult to do. I'm turning it sideways might make it easier. Just hard to get a grip on it. There we go. Almost there. Alright, we're almost there. There we go. So that's what the silencer silicone looks like. It's actually quite a cool shape. It's like purposefully designed for this. So you can see how the bottom is wider and it matches the width of this rail right here, and the top is thinner. So that's with the silencer taken off. Just need to find a place to put this. Alright, and now for the other side. Definitely not something you'd want to do for all your switches. That's going to drive me crazy. I just want to take one off just so that you can hear the difference with and without a silencer. There we go. Alright, so with that, the Dolphin basically turns into a normal linear switch. Before we go into the sound test, I will also show you real quick. One thing I was worried about was that since it's on the rail of the stem, I was wondering if the silicone ring would actually touch the side rail of the bottom housing and cause any difference in feel on the downstroke. So you can see, if you can see on the side, it actually does touch the side rails a little bit, but I can't feel it, right? I think partially it's that it's kind of recessed on the side. If you look from the top, you can't see it on the side, right? And so what's touching the rail is really just the standard plastic of the stem. I don't think the silicone is actually making much contact to the rails at all, which is what you want, right? Because you want a consistent feel. You don't want like you don't want to feel the plastic of the stem and suddenly feel the silicone on the way down until you bottom out, right? Bottom out's when you want to feel the silicone, but not on any of the sliding motion. And I don't feel that as I'm testing it. And if you can see from the top as well, you'd see that you can't really see the silicone ring, which I think is the right call here. And so I don't think it touches the side, and you're not going to feel it. So with that, let's dive right into the sound test and see what it sounds like. All right, let's get right into the sound test. For today, we are actually going to do a sound test on our Q1, just to give you a bit of variety in terms of how the board sounds. This is the Keychron Q1. However, this Keychron Q1 has been significantly modded. There's a PE foam on it, and there's additional sound dampening on the bottom, as well as a Tempest mod. So don't expect your standard run-of-the-mill Q1 to sound like this. So keep in mind these are silent switches, so they're going to be quite a bit more silent. I put the microphone as close as I can. Let's see if we can pick it up. Alright, for a quick reference, this is a standard Gatoron red switch. This is the Durock Dolphin. It's in stock form. It's got a little bit of factory lube, but that's it. My God, that's quiet. I'm pressing these keys as hard as I press the reds. They're much, much more quieter. And now for the Daybreak. And now for the Shrimp. The Shrimp's quite a bit louder than the Daybreak and the Dolphin, but they're all significantly quieter than the red. I'm going to press in a quick succession. Here's the red. So as you can see, there's a huge difference between the red and the two linear silents. The tactile silent, you can still hear a little bit, but it's still way quieter than the standard reds. Let's go into the lubed and filmed version. So this is the lubed and filmed version of the switches, starting with the Dolphin. And now the Daybreak. And now the Shrimp. So lubing and filming definitely changes the sound signature of it, but they remain just as quiet, right? Like these are really quiet switches. It deepens the sound. It's still a very pleasing sound to it, honestly, but it is definitely very quiet. Now, if you've ever wondered what these switches sound like without the silicone, we've actually done that for you here as well. On the top row, we have the same switches in lubed and filmed condition, but without the silicone dampers on each of them. So let's take a look and see what that sounds like. On the Dolphin, this is lubed and filmed without the silicone ring. That is way louder. It sounds much more like a normal switch. And here's the Daybreak. And here's the Shrimp. So let's compare top to bottom. So let's start with the Dolphin first. This is a stock form, and then this is the lubed and filmed, and then this is lubed and filmed but without the dampener. So we're going to go quickly through that. So quickly, lubing and filming it deepens the sound signature slightly, but they do sound quite similar, and they're equally quiet, I would say. In terms of the feel of it, lubing definitely makes it smoother, so I recommend lubing it. Both of these switches do feel really nice though, and in terms of stem wobble, they're actually quite good. And then in terms of feeling, right, when I bottom out the one without the dampener, it definitely feels like a normal switch, but on the silence version, it's a very cushioned feeling, right? It feels like I'm bottoming out and kind of touching it's almost like a, how to describe it? Yeah, like a kind of rubber dampener, which I mean silicone is. That's basically what it is, right? And so it does feel that way. And so if you're one of those that types really hard and bottoms out your switches, and it hurts your fingers, maybe a silenced version could be for you as well. And onto the one without the dampener. It's actually quite a pleasing sound as well. I would liken it to one of the deeper sounding switches. Maybe it's quite close to the piano, really, which as a Durock switch is not surprising. Kind of piano, lavender-ish sounding. Now on to the next one, which is the Daybreak. They've got very similar makeup, and really it's just a slightly different spring, so I expect the results to be largely similar. So I start with the stock form. Now to the lubed and filmed. And lastly, without dampener. Yeah, very similar results. Lubing definitely improves the feel of it, and it deepens the sound slightly. In terms of what the silicone dampener feels like, is exactly the same as the Dolphin. It's kind of a cushioned feeling to it. It's quite nice to feeling, really. I actually might prefer this feeling to a normal switch. Yeah, in terms of bottoming out, like if I'm a heavy typer, I think this would actually be quite pleasing to my fingertips. And lastly, on a shrimp. It's quite interesting on the shrimp because you can kind of hear the tactile bump as you press down on it on the silent version because it's so quiet. I don't know if you guys can hear it on the mic, but you can definitely hear the bump and a little bit of the kind of, I guess, the stem riding over the bump here. Whereas on the version without the silencer, you can't really hear it. It's pretty much sounding like a normal switch. So does the silencer work? I actually think it really does. It's a huge difference in terms of how the switch sounds, and it actually feels quite nice to the hands too. It really depends on you whether or not you find this kind of more silenced, muffled sound signature pleasing to your ears. But if you need a silenced keyboard for work or for your spouse, this is something that you can definitely consider. And it's got just as nice a feeling as the normal switches from Durock, while offering that really quiet sound signature, which I actually find quite pleasing. So tell us what you think in the comments section. Do you like how these sound? What do you think of the design? Do you like the silicone ring design? And what's your experience with it? Once again, this is Loon Keeps. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please do like and subscribe. It really helps us, and let us know what you think in the comment section below.